because here's a guy, he ice fishes, he's a hunter, he does butter carving, which again is not such a popular thing in urban areas. I mean, he's really a sort of, he is a rural person.
They're stupid rednecks. I don't even think they can read. Put him in a flannel shirt, show him with a camo hunting cap, and you'll win. That's how stupid they think you are. Earlier this month, I coined the phrase Kamalagasms for all the excitement over on MSNBC over the new Democrat nominee for president. You know, the one that was placed there after unconstitutionally, undemocratically, un-Americanly, the actual winner of the Democrat nomination for president was forcibly, against his will, removed from contention. And a small handful of politically powerful people and very wealthy donors handpicked Kamala Harris and placed her in her position now. It doesn't matter how they're going to use their totalitarian tactics to save democracy, as long as they save democracy, right? Absolutely right. And they love them some Kamala. Kamalagasms, multiple Kamalagasms everywhere whenever she appears. Well, now that Tim Walz has been selected, they are going into hyperdrive with all the can we call them Walzgasms now? Call them, I don't know what it's a threesome of some sort. But you should see Mike Barnacle today on Morning Joe doing his Meg Ryan impersonation from When Harry Met Sally. You know, in the deli scene, I'll have what she's having. Take a look.
You know, Joe, that's a very interesting observation that you just pointed out, the Reagan campaign of 1980. Watching the coach, and I'm going to call him the coach from now until Election Day, watching the coach yesterday and watching the vice president yesterday, it was mesmerizing in the sense that it's been a while since I've seen a rally like that, either on TV or in person. And watching it, you could just sense the power in the hall. And it was the power of joy, the power of laughter, the power of hope for the future, but especially the power of those who were in the hall and those who were thinking or considering voting for this ticket, the vice president and the coach. For those considering voting for the ticket, giving them the power to think that they're participating in something that will put a smile on your face. It's been a long time since any aspect of American politics has put a smile on anyone's face. And these two people yesterday managed to put a smile on the nation's face.
Sorry. Just sort of get overcome there. Somebody give him a cold towelette, maybe a cigarette as he basks in the afterglow. Good Lord, what did we just watch? Dude, chill out. He's like Pee Wee Herman at the movie theater. Also, I don't know if you caught the veiled sort of backhanded shade that he's throwing. Certainly, he's criticizing Joe Biden there. It's been a long time. But is this also not a slam at Hillary Clinton? I mean, it hasn't been that long since Hillary Clinton, a transcendent political figure that we were lucky enough to have in our presence. How dare us not make her president? It wasn't that long ago that Hillary Clinton was doing rallies, but Barnacle's like, I can't remember a time when I felt this way. I guess they're now finally telling you the truth about what they thought about Hillary Clinton. I wonder how long it's going to take them for them to tell us the truth about what they really feel about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. This is how they do what they do. But again, as merely a political observer, just like you, I watch this and think to myself, where the hell have you people been? It's been a long time since a political rally has put a smile on anybody's face. There's a lot of people smiling at Trump rallies. A lot. But see, to their minds, in their eyes, with their perspective, you aren't anybody. Those are the words he used. It's been a long time since a political rally like that yesterday put a smile on anybody's face. What he means is anybody we know, anybody we like, or anybody we respect. But see, their job is to actually tell their viewers the truth. If they were honest, they would have said, It's been a long time for a Democrat rally to put a smile on anyone's face at a Democrat rally, or to put a smile on any Democrat's face. But they pretend like you don't exist because in their mind, you don't exist, or you don't legitimately exist. I mean, after all, look at what you believe, look at who you support, and look at who you intend to vote for. You don't have the right to have a voice in American politics. So they talk like you aren't even there. That's assuming Mike Barnicle actually believes what he said. My hunch is that Mike Barnicle knows exactly who the audience there is on Morning Joe. He knows exactly who the hosts are there on Morning Joe. And he knows exactly who the executives in charge of MSNBC and NBC News writ large at 30 Rock, at Universal Comcast are. And so he says what he needs to say to keep that gig. It's a cushy little gig, let's face it. It's not like he can go back to cranking out columns all the time. Mike Barnicle is a plagiarist. Oh, yeah. In your free time, just go to your favorite search engine and type in Mike Barnicle plagiarism. It doesn't matter when you're on Morning Joe. He's got his gig. It's fine. But geez, Mike, put it back in your pants, will you? That's just embarrassing. But beyond embarrassing is Molly Jong Fast, who, by the way, is not Chinese. It's like that Seinfeld episode, right? When Jerry dates the woman who he thinks is Chinese and she's Jewish, but she has a Chinese name, and he feels gypped. He feels, it's like when you see the byline Molly Jong Fast, and it's like, well, at the very least, she's got to be, sort of biracial. Let's tune in. What the hell is that? It's Molly Jong Fast. Anyway, Molly Jong Fast is a radical New York leftist. And in the eyes of a radical New York leftist who never leaves the confines of Manhattan, unless maybe to go to San Francisco or LA, in her mind, from her perspective, Tim Walz is a hee-haw loving, pickup driving, redneck hick. Watch and laugh at this.
So I have interviewed Tim Walz before, so I knew what he could do. And I feel like and Democratic governors knew what he could do because he was the head of the Democratic Governors Association. So when I saw that he was in contention, and he called me and said he was in contention, and I thought to myself, this guy is really a good orator. And what I thought was that it was a reach out to rural voters, because here's a guy. Hold on. Selecting Tim Walz as your running mate. Tim Walz, the guy who took a knee to the George Floyd rioters, to the mob, took a knee and let Minneapolis and St. Paul burn to the ground, and then apologized for his white privilege. The man who single-handedly rewrote laws in Minnesota so parents could bring their children there and chemically castrate them, and lined out any description that involved pedophilia from being not conducive to a definition of a sexual preference. The man who has embraced sanctuary city policies so that illegal aliens entering this country illegally can run rampant across an American city, taking jobs, draining resources. A man who has allowed tent cities in his major urban centers to fester and go out of control, with homeless criminal vagrants taking up residence. Selecting that guy as your running mate is a signal to rural America. That's the crack analysis you're getting on MSNBC. This is Kamala Harris reaching out to rural America by picking the champion of the summer of rage and Black Lives Matter riots.
That's a signal that she really wants to reach to those rural voters. And she goes on with this delusion. I don't know if she is, in fact, this stupid to believe this, or she's that good a liar. To the viewers on MSNBC, who, by the way, are also basically New York, D.C. liberals as well. They never leave their cities. And so I guess she's preaching to the MSNBC choir. Sadly, I hate to use religious references because God knows none of them actually attend church. But to their minds, this really, oh, well, look, he wears a flannel shirt and he goes hunting. So clearly, this is a selection for rural America because that's all those people care about. They don't actually read. They have no concept of policies or politics or laws. They're stupid rednecks. I don't even think they can read. Put them in a flannel shirt, show them with a camo hunting cap, and you'll win. That's how stupid they think you are.
He ice fishes. He's a hunter. He does butter carving, which, again, is not such a popular thing in urban areas. I mean, he's really a sort of, he is a rural person. And, he went to college on the GI Bill. He was the highest ranking enlisted man. This is a person who is really part of this rural America. And he really makes the case for how government programs can help people. His father died when he was young and he enlisted in the Army to pay for college. And I think that is a really important, we don't necessarily hear that message so much in politics today. And so I really do think, I sort of thought in my head, this guy, he really is kind of a rural American success story. And remember, he was born in Kansas, so he has really part of rural America.
I mean, again, anybody who actually is part of rural America who's watching, anybody who actually identifies as a rural American, I'd love for you to react to that if you could on the comment section there, because I don't think there's much rural going on with Tim Walz in terms of who he is, what he stands for, what he's done, what he believes, and what he promises to do if he's the vice president. And by the way, there's one other thing here that you may have missed, but I have a keen ear for this sort of thing. Did you see how Molly Jong-Fast let out that Tim Walz called her to let her know that he was in contention? Did you catch that? And then they had, a private conversation. Who knows? But why would a politician be calling a journalist who appears on MSNBC on a regular basis to sort of clue her in on what's going on here? Well, it's obvious why. You just saw why. So he could make his case to her. And if he's selected, she looks like she's smart by being able to rattle off his resume like that as if they're close personal friends. This is how it works. This is how the media works with Democrat politicians. Hand in glove. It's a revolving door. It's what Andrew Breitbart used to call the Democrat media complex. But the most insidious aspect of what goes on MSNBC is not the ones that we know about. I mean, we know who Molly Jong-Fast is. We know who Mike Barnicle is. We know who Joe and Mika is. It's the pretend conservatives, the Republicans who have just had to walk away from the party because of Donald Trump. Of course, I'm talking about Charlie Sykes. Charlie Sykes, the voice of the Midwest, Milwaukee radio host who decided that he couldn't see his party ruined by Donald Trump. So they brought him on for the Republican perspective, because why would you bring on somebody on this show who actually voted for Donald Trump? That's irrelevant. No one cares what those people think. So here's Charlie Sykes, and you see the Axios headline they start with, which is actually, again, accidentally Axios had a truthful moment and an accurate moment. It's true. Republicans are breathing a sigh of relief with Tim Walz. Way better than Josh Shapiro as far as a Republican is concerned. So what did Charlie Sykes tell the MSNBC audience?
Going to play in the states that matter most in your community, in your state.
Well, I mean, initially, I admit that I was surprised and disappointed by this choice. I thought that Josh Shapiro was the more obvious choice. Walz is much more TBD. Sometimes governors have a hard time scaling up, and I think it's very, very important for this ticket to appeal and reach out to the center and to moderate voters. I thought they would have done that with Shapiro. I think it's more of a question mark with Walz, but I think you're asking exactly the right question here. How does this play? And it's funny. I wrote my Substack newsletter late last night. That maybe we're thinking about this all wrong, and I came down exactly where you are on all of this. That we're so used to thinking of this in ideological terms, when maybe it will be something else. Maybe it will be not decided on policy, but decided on personality and perception. His biography, the vibe that he gives out. He may have a very progressive governing record, but he reads moderate and he talks like a regular person rather than a politician, which will play well in rural areas. Look, there are three big constituencies here in All
right, now I'm going to let you finish there, but I hope you picked up on that. Oh, sure, he's a crazy left-wing radical and his policies are way over on the fringe, but he reads moderate. He comes across as moderate. And so therefore it'll work in rural areas. Like, again, this, Charlie Sykes from Milwaukee with his jacket and tie and his $100 haircut. He looks down his nose at those dairy farmers of Wisconsin because he truly thinks that all they care about is image and what you look like and whether you're plain spoken. I don't care what you stand for. That's truly what they think. That's the best spin they've got today, by the way. You'll see it elsewhere too. I can't remember who it was making the analysis, but they said, I think this is going to be like 1980 with Reagan, or it's going to be like 2008 with Obama. This is less about policy as it is about how the politician makes me feel. Well, when that's the spin the next day, they're scared. That Kamala stepped in it, and they know that Kamala stepped in it. That's why they're working so hard to point out all of this surface stuff about Tim Walz and all of the stuff that really doesn't matter, but they're going to keep trying to sell you on it. That again, he's going to keep going, and I'll let him finish, but just listen for it. He reads moderate. He comes across this way. He plays this way. That's a fancy way of saying, well, he can deceive voters. He lies really, really well. That's what they're saying.
In Wisconsin, it's three crucial constituency. Number one is the Democratic base in Milwaukee and Madison. Can they generate enough enthusiasm to turn out big numbers? I think the indicators are right now, they're certainly headed in the right direction. Number two is the white rural vote that Democrats have been shedding. And Tim Walz can come in and he will speak their language. He may not have the policies, that might align, but he will speak their language. And then the third major constituency is the area I live in here around Milwaukee, which is the moderate, skeptical Republicans who have been drifting away from Donald Trump. And that's the big question mark. Will the Republicans be able to identify this ticket cast it as this is a far left ticket? You may not like Trump, but this is way outside the norm. Or will this be, and I think your analogy is really powerful, like 1980, like 2008, where people were saying, I'm not voting on going down this menu of ideological issues. I just like these guys. I am tired of the status quo. I want something else, and I'm excited. And just one last point about...
now I know who said it. I forgot I'd watched this video earlier. It was him who said it. That's what they're hoping for. I don't care about the... Trust me, when people voted for Ronald Reagan, they voted for policies. Trust me. They were voting against Jimmy Carter's policies because they had destroyed the country. Oh, and speaking of voting against Jimmy Carter policies, did you notice this if you watched the rally yesterday? And if you didn't, don't. I'll just tell you. Do you know how often these two heroic figures you see in front of you, how often they mentioned Joe Biden's name and Bidenomics and Joe Biden's policies and what Joe Biden, Theoretically, this ticket is running on 4 more years. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? If so, here's who you want to vote for to keep the good times rolling. They don't want to talk about Joe Biden. They don't want to talk about Joe Biden at all. What does that tell you?
That rally, which was truly extraordinary. I mean, first of all, as I said before, governors often don't scale up. He looked ready for the moment, but that was the kind of energy you usually see in late October, not early August. And I am wondering what kinds of crowds he's going to turn out here and in Michigan and Pennsylvania, because this enthusiasm is not speculative. It's real. It's there. And I'm going to be very interesting to see how it plays here.
Hey, everybody. Crowd size at rallies matters again. Didn't matter before. Now suddenly it matters. Now all we're going to hear, look at the size of that rally. Look at the size of the. No, I don't think so. Don't forget, the reason this rally was oversold and people were jammed in was because these Pennsylvanians thought that their governor was going to get the pick. And he was there. He gave his speech and proudly proclaimed how he was proud to be Jewish. Oh, I'm so sorry. He didn't say that. He said, I'm proud of my faith. Poor, sad, pathetic Josh Shapiro couldn't even proclaim himself Jewish on the stage before he introduced Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because he was told not to. Hey, Josh, let's not go there. Let's just keep that between us. You want one more MSNBC clip? All right, one more, only because it's really good. And it's not going to make you angry. It's actually going to, well, edify many of the things you already know about Tim Walz and about how this is not the pick. After everything that you just saw on MSNBC about how he's Mr. Normal and Mr. Moderate and Mr. Reach Out to the rural voters, and he's the one who's actually going to build the rural voters, Steve Karnecki decided to bring out his little magic touchscreen and take a look at Tim Walz's last election and how well he did with those very same rural voters in Minnesota. How do you think he did? Well, Steve, tell us the ugly truth.
Now, here's the key, because this county, Democrats used to be much more competitive in. Look at this. In 2012, Barack Obama won 43% of the vote in this county. It was only a little bit more than 10 points that he lost to Romney by here. The floor fell out for Democrats here when Trump came along in that Clinton race in 2016, and they haven't recovered it since. And that Walz performance here, it's a little less than Biden's number. It's more than Clinton's, and it's a far cry from what Obama was doing here. And again, I'm showing you one. This is a stand-in for dozens of counties in Minnesota where you saw the same thing with large rural populations, blue-collar white populations, where Obama, and some of them he was winning, others he was holding his own just a dozen years ago. This is where Democrats have lost ground. And Walz in 2022, he didn't gain any ground that the Democrats had lost. He didn't do that here. He didn't do that in other counties.
Now, this is at 10:30 this morning after the MSNBC viewers just saw 3 solid hours of Morning Joe and all of these idiots telling them that Tim Walz is going to be the magic bullet for blue-collar rural voters. And then here comes Steve Karnecki saying, hey, let's take a look at how he did when he ran for governor last time around with those very same voters that Mike Barnacle and Joe and Mika and Molly Jong-Fast and everybody else just told you that Tim Walz is going to absolutely clean up with. And it turns out he did horrible with those voters in his own state. So now those voters in Western Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin are going to say, well, yeah, absolutely. Let's go with Tim Walz. Really? Well, let's see.
Walz really owes his victory. That big that margin, he got 8 points there statewide. He owes it to the Twin Cities area here, the area where Democrats in Minnesota and all these other states are already doing well. It's sort of the standard Democratic victory model in a state like this. It got Walz in 2022. This is the biggest county in the state. This is where Minneapolis is. Hennepin County. Walz wins this by 44 points. Look at all the votes that came out of their total. It's huge. And again, that's right in line with what Joe Biden did in 2020 when he won Minnesota. And again, just wind the clock back here. 12 years ago, this was still a blue county, but less blue. So it's the suburban areas, the metropolitan areas that have gotten much more blue. And Walz performed just like Biden did, better than Clinton did in places like this. And then in the rest of greater Minnesota, small town Minnesota, where the Democrats have been losing ground, Walz performed basically just like Biden did as well. So, look at his electoral history. Tim Walz is in 2022. And the idea that he's got this automatic appeal with these small town areas in those 3 key battleground states, you don't see it in what he actually did on the ballot in 2022.
That's right. That's right. And, well, listen, anything can happen. I don't want to get too overconfident, but let me just say, as I said yesterday, Trump and Vance and Republicans and those who want to see a change in the White House, we dodged a huge bullet. And we owe a big thank you to all the Jew-hating anti-Semites in the Democrat Party who could not possibly stand having a Jewish man on the ticket, Josh Shapiro. Thanks, guys. You're doing great. Keep up that activism. Rashida Tlaib is now the most powerful Democrat in America. And now we're supposed to believe that this guy, Tim Walz, is going to be the magic bullet for Kamala Harris to win over those blue-collar rural towns that she really needs to win in Western Pennsylvania and in Michigan. And based on how he performed in Minnesota, all he's done here is basically shore up the same vote Kamala Harris already had. Detroit will absolutely go for Harris Walz. But when you go further out into Oakland County or further out into the, Kalamazoo area in Michigan, not so much. Not so much.